Good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday, the 13th of January, 2022. Pretty crazy. It's already 2 weeks in to our year. So I'm doing a read through the Bible in a year this year, something that I found I've been doing most years, the last 5 or so years, and as I mentioned in my last week's video that I did, I'm reading the Jerusalem Bible, which also has which has got some other works in it that I'm going to read as well, alongside the 66 books of the Bible. But I just finished Genesis this morning, and if you're reading the Bible chronologically or cover to cover, you're probably near the end of the book of Genesis right now as well. And so it's pretty famous how Joseph, near the end of his life, his brothers, they come and they're like, oh man, like now that dad's dead, he's going to put the full wrath of being the second most powerful man in the world on top of us. So Joseph responds saying, "Do not be afraid. Is it for me to put myself in God's place? The evil you planned to do me has by God's design been turned to good, that he might bring about, as indeed he has, the deliverance of numerous people." So that right there, obviously huge theological contemplations can happen. Obviously ramifications can go across a lot of things. I'd love to have conversations about a lot of ways that others might find personal application points for this. Inside the interpretation of the text, the people of Israel reading that story would, 1,000 years later, take comfort and solace knowing that God's hand has been over them to guide their history, and essentially that the promises made will be fulfilled, not by their own scheming and devising, because their scheming and devising as a nation would have, if it had turned out as they planned, caused the complete annihilation of their family, and therefore then the promulgation, to use a big word that I think I used the right way, of the nation. But in my contemplation of personal application of it, I'm not planning on being a nation. God hasn't told me that my descendants will be as numerous as the sand or anything like that. But I think about how in that moment, the ability to look at hurt and pain through the lens of God's redemptive perspective and eternal power stood out in my mind. And hopefully I didn't lose everybody with big words on that or anything like that. But right now, a lot of negative stuff could potentially be going on in your life. Events that you think are terrible, horrible, events that you are crushed by. And first off, I want to just point out that like Joseph didn't, in the moment of being sold by his brothers, like it's not recorded that he's like, God's going to make this all be better. So be encouraged if you are not the person who's just like instantly like, everything's going to be okay. But in it, I want all of us to be able to be mature enough to think about how even in the bad things that happen in our life, God, by design of who he is, could be working out an even better plan than we could ever imagine. So this isn't my, way to loosely be like, oh, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. This is your theology of God big enough that even the miserable events in your life, even the terrible events, even a cataclysmic pandemic, can God somehow cause grandeur and beauty and splendor to happen? Do you believe that God's big enough that good can still happen? So it's challenging to me because oftentimes whenever I have something that triggers some sort of confusion or pain or frustration in my mind, and I can get caught in a feed loop of irritation. What brings me outside of that moment? What gets me back into calm and peace in the moment? And I want to suggest that each of us, if we claim to be followers of Jesus Christ, we should be challenged to think about how today, no matter what it looks like, can be a day that not only the Lord has made, but a day that the Lord will use to bring about His plans and purposes. And so it's always easy to challenge someone else if they're in a hard time, to be like, it's okay, like, you just got to look at it better. But are you personally? Because I know in my own life, I thought I'm a coach, and if I have very few athletes, and I'm like, if one of my athletes gets sick, this is going to ruin the entire season, this is going to affect this, that, and the other thing, and I don't think about, and it takes me actually intentionally thinking about how can this be positive. So I don't know in your personal case what is bad, but I think that all of us oftentimes can get overwhelmed with the negative, and we need to, rather than think about the frustrations, ask, how does my view of God inform how I should act and love others and forgive others and also have confidence in the day? So again, to circle back to the beginning, I'm reading through my Bible this year. I just finished the story of Joseph, just finished the book of Genesis, and I've just been challenged to think about, how does my view of God affect how the current circumstances that I'm in, whether good or bad, how I interact with them. And our view of God directly feeds into how we handle the present. Thanks for tuning in. Know that you are loved. You are wonderful. If you're someone who's close here in Astoria, I would love to see you, whether at church or give me a call, stop by while I'm in the office, shoot a text. Would love to see you. If you aren't here in Astoria, still love you and would love to hear from you no matter what. If you are reading the Bible in a year, comment below. Let me know. I just believe that as a community of faith, we need to be showing our love for others more, and also we need to be talking about how God is working in our life as much as we can. You are loved. Have a blessed day. Bye.